So, the first question is, growing up, do you feel like gender was imposed on you? Whether that was from choice of toys that were provided to you, clothes that you wore, or how your emotions were handled?
I do think it kind of was, yeah. Tried as my parents wanted to have a gender neutral raising with me and my brother, I think they definitely kind of expected certain behaviors and
gravitated towards certain things.
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
I don't feel like it was imposed on me, especially growing up with a brother too, so two different genders. I never felt as if I was only given things that would be stereotypical girl toys or girl clothes, maybe more clothing wise. It wasn't ever been you can pick from this. I was able to pick whatever I wanted, or if I wanted to play with cars or tractors or something.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit. I'd say we kind of had both gender toys in the house because I have a sister as well and a brother. But me and my brother just naturally kind of always chose to play with the same things. So.
No.
In any way, you don't think so?
I mean,
if you were to want to play with a toy that's deemed more feminine, that your parents wouldn't have deterred you from that, you don't think? Or did you not really think about that as a kid?
I just didn't think about it.
Is there one instance that you remember to this day, or that you remember specifically of a gender norm being imposed on you? Oh, I only have to do this because I'm a boy.
It wasn't so much imposed on me, but my mom just always marvels at it because I loved everything super feminine as a kid. I loved the color pink, I loved dressing up, I loved Barbies, but I hated baby dolls. I just did not want anything to do with a baby doll.
I would say the only thing like that is being a woman heavily involved in the agricultural industry. I sometimes feel that because I'm a woman in a male-dominated career field, that I'm maybe second guess my own abilities or feel as if I am not looked at as an equal based on skill, knowledge, things like that.
Yeah,
I think my dad kind of expected me and my brother to take care of the outdoor things, the lawn and stuff, mowing the lawn. So I think that's something that just me and my brother will always do, so my sister doesn't have to worry about it.
No. Do you believe that gender is a social construct, affected by our society, how we view gender, male versus female, and how you should act as a male or female?
Biological, or just what makes you feel
So as in what makes you feel, more, not so much your biological sex, but gender is the more the way you feel. Do you think that's a social construct? So society has defined what it means to be a male or female, aside from the biological, but females have the more feminine tendencies and the gender norms of they're the housewives, they clean, they cook, and men are more manly in the sense that they go to work and make money. But do you think that gender is affected by how society views men and women, I guess?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do kind of think it is. I'm friends with some individuals in my school who are non-binary or gender non-conforming.
Yeah.
And I just kind of see that this allows them to feel themselves and their own lives more authentically without gender.
Yeah, and express themselves how they feel.
Yeah.
Fits them.
Personally, no.
Okay.
I don't think
totally fine.
gender is a social thing. I think it's much more a scientific, physical.
You would say that you would
aspect.
think gender is like gender, sex, the same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think society definitely plays a big role in that. But I think that's just kind of the way the world has been brought up from a long time ago. But
Yeah.
I think it's slowly starting to go away.
Okay. Do you think that having gender norms, the idea of rigid gender roles, is toxic to kids growing up, developing minds, or kids growing up?
I think in a rigid way, yes, but I feel if you present them equally and not say, hey, girls gravitate towards feminine stereotypes and boys gravitate towards masculine stereotypes, I think presenting them more equally to kids and letting them decide it is a better way to go about that.
Yeah.
Gender norms are being dissipated more, and there's a little bit more open-mindedness to more than two genders these days, that some kids maybe struggle more than others with that. When you're young, those things aren't talked about as explicitly, and it's more sex thing, like you're a boy or a girl. But then one day it turns around and it's talked about as a more fluid concept, or we see nowadays in public and in advertising and marketing and things like that, gender being a fluid concept. But I don't think it's communicated in a way that is comprehensible for young kids.
That's fair.
Not really. I mean, unless like you use it in the wrong way, but I think there's different cultures handle it a different way, or different religions and stuff. So however you decide to go about it is good, but no, I don't think it's toxic.
Okay.
Honestly, personally, I don't think so. But,
That's fine.
I mean, there's always like outliers just with anything.
Do you believe that toxic masculinity is a thing in our culture and society? Do you think that's a thing today?
What's that?
A lot of times boys are taught growing up, oh, if you're a real man, you don't cry. And so then a lot of times it leads men to not really know how to process their emotion or feel ashamed of having emotion. Do you believe that toxic masculinity is a real thing?
Very much so.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Would you say that that's prevalent in today's society?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think men are always taught not to cry and stuff like that, and they're just holding their emotions more. And yeah, I think it's toxic, but it's just the way it's taught.
Do you have an example?
I think society has come very far with equalizing men and women. In certain cases, there is still this overarching theme that men are superior to women. There are certain men that have that toxic masculinity trait.
Yeah,
In what ways?
can be.
Like, what would you say toxic masculinity is?
Well, when I hear that, I mean it's the same thing as like, the same thing as toxic femininity.
That's my next question.
Yeah.
What about toxic femininity? Have you ever heard of the concept of toxic femininity?
I've heard of it. I'm not super sure on the description of it as much as I've seen toxic masculinity, but I am somewhat familiar with it.
Is it kind of the same thing?
Somewhat. In the past, women were seen as kind of the other gender and not really capable of much in comparison to men. Women used to be seen as like non-harmful, and they were like the other gender, and like, some women that are naive, like I think they can get away with certain things because it's just like that, like in the back of their mind that like, oh, I can't do anything harmful. So they're kind of naive to if they are being harmful to other people.
Yes, I think they're very equal in that sense. I think ever since the big movement for feminism and women's rights and equal rights has kind of surfaced society again today, I think that can be taken to an extreme too. I don't think that men are at more fault for having toxic masculinity than women are for having, toxic femininity.
I definitely say it's relevant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if anything, it's a lot to the pride thing that is the reason behind it. But like I said, it also goes with this.
Yeah.
I feel
So
like that's
toxic
like the only-
masculinity and toxic femininity are both prevalent.
Yeah.
Then, how do you feel children should be raised in regard to teaching about gender? How do you feel gender should be taught or introduced to kids, or if at all? Or do you think it's something that needs to be addressed at all? As in, opposed to not like your sex, but how we talked about earlier, gender as being more like a sexual thing. Because I feel like a lot of people don't teach, like, you're a girl, you have to do these things. It's more like implicitly like ingrained in our minds. So do you think that there should be more teaching of kids growing up about like non-binary, they, them pronouns? Like, how do you feel that should be introduced to kids?
I think kind of what I mentioned earlier, like when it comes to gender norms for kids, like not necessarily forcing one or the other on them based on their gender growing up, allow them to kind of explore those things, whether it be through toys, the way that they dress, and just encouraging them that your gender is what you make of it. You're allowed to express it however you feel comfortable with it, and show them love and acceptance regardless of whatever they choose when it comes to gender or lack thereof.
Yes.
Because of my personal beliefs and the way in which I was raised, I don't think that gender is something that needs to be taught. Like you said, I think it's fairly implicit. While I'm still accepting and open-minded to the idea that gender is something fluid, I don't know if I can say or convey a way that I think that should be taught due to, honestly, my lack of knowledge.
I don't know, just kind of letting them do their own thing. You can obviously like push them towards things that you might want them to be interested in, but if they draw back from it, don't just try to force them to do something, you know, kind of let your kids make their own decisions and grow up by themselves, learn their own lessons, and, you know.
Honestly, I don't think it needs to really be talked about as long as, like, you're just not being a bully about it and, like, are not necessarily open to others' views, because, I mean, you're the only one that's going to be able to figure anything out like that. I don't think really anyone needs to let, or, like, you know, help you. It's something you just kind of discover yourself.
Yes, of course.
That's perfect. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for answering my questions.
Okay, that's it.
Cool, thank you.
Yep, lit.
Okay, that's it.
Good.